My cheating ex emailed me. We just need your blessing to authenticate our union. 4 years after I caught her with my business partner. I marked it as spam and went back to my life. Until the flying monkeys started circling, asking why I was refusing to help them clear their cache. This is going to sound cold, but in my line of work, you don't negotiate with compromised systems. You isolate them. I'm Mark, 34, a senior systems architect for a major tech firm in Seattle. 4 years ago, my life crashed hard. I walked into the condo I owned to find my fiancée, Elena, and my business partner, Chris, conducting their own private merger in our bedroom. This wasn't a drunken glitch. This was a sustained, calculated breach of trust that had been running in the background for 6 months while I was pulling 80-hour weeks to get our startup off the ground. I lost my fiancé and the company I helped build in a single afternoon. Chris tried to buy me out with pennies on the dollar, thinking I was too emotional to read the fine print. I wasn't. I handled it the way I handle a security intrusion, immediate containment. I sold my shares to a competitor who I knew would gut Chris's leadership team, evicted Elena, her name wasn't on the deed, changed every password, revoked every access key, and initiated a hard reset on my life. I moved to a different state, blocked their IP addresses, metaphorically and literally, and implemented a strict zero-trust policy for my personal life. For 4 years, the firewall held. I rebuilt my career, secured a position at a FAANG company, and bought a place overlooking the Sound. I didn't hate them, I just viewed them as malicious code, dangerous if you let it in, harmless if you keep it quarantined. Then came the breach attempt. Elena sent an email to my work address. The subject line was cleaning the slate. The body was a manifesto about growth, forgiveness, and how she and Chris were finally getting married. They wanted me there, not just as a guest, but to give a toast. They claimed my presence was the final encryption key needed to lock in their happiness and prove we had all matured. I analyzed the request. Why would 2 people who incinerated my life need me to toast their arson? My reply was standard protocol. Request denied. Do not contact this server again. That should have been the end of the session. Instead, the DDoS attack started. Mutual friends from the old days, people I hadn't spoken to since the buyout, began messaging me. "Come on, Mark, it's been years," and "they just want to show you they've changed." One friend, Jason, told me that my refusal was making them look bad, like I was the bitter ex holding a grudge while they were the enlightened couple trying to heal the world. I'm not holding a grudge, I'm holding a boundary. In cybersecurity, when you identify an insider threat, you don't hire them back 4 years later because they say sorry. You blacklist them forever because the vulnerability is in their source code. Update 1. The situation has escalated, and I've run some diagnostics to figure out the root cause. I have a friend in HR, Sarah, who still runs in their circles. I took her out for drinks to do some penetration testing on their narrative. What I found was fascinating. Elena and Chris aren't living the dream. The startup floundered after I left because Chris is a visionary who can't code his way out of a paper bag, and I was the one doing the actual architecture. They're swimming in debt. More importantly, their social circle is fragmented. Apparently, the narrative they've been spinning is that I was a workaholic absentee partner who drove Elena into Chris's arms and that Chris saved her. The problem? The data doesn't match the story. Too many people remember me funding the company. Too many people remember me paying Elena's student loans. The Mark was the villain patch they tried to install keeps glitching because the legacy data, the truth, is still out there. If I show up to the wedding, shake hands and toast their union, I validate their version 2.0. I become the living proof that it wasn't that bad. My attendance would essentially be me signing a non-disclosure agreement regarding their betrayal. Sarah told me something else. Elena is terrified. She's convinced that our old friend group is silently judging her. They are. She thinks that if I, the primary victim of their merger, show up and smile, it will override everyone else's hesitation. They are trying to use my social capital to patch the security holes in their reputation. I told Sarah, I don't patch vulnerabilities for systems I don't own.
Update 2. The pressure campaign shifted from "come for closure" to "come or else." Chris called me from a burner number last week. He tried the "bros before everything" protocol, which was rich coming from the guy who slept with my fiancée. He said, "Look, man, Elena is really spiraling over this. She thinks your absence is a statement. People are asking why you aren't coming, and it's making us look guilty. Just come for an hour, make an appearance, do it for the old times." I laughed. I actually laughed. Chris, I said, my absence is a statement. It states that I have self-respect. You want me to act as a logic bomb to clear your conscience. That's not my job. He got angry then. He told me that if I didn't come, they'd have to tell people the real reason I was staying away, implying they would invent something damaging. Blackmail, a classic social engineering tactic. That was the moment I decided to go on the offensive. You don't defend against a hacker by just blocking ports. Sometimes you have to log the traffic and publish the report. I called my sister, Lisa, who is a contract lawyer and savage with logistics. I showed her the texts, the emails, the threats. She said, they're trying to control the narrative because the truth destroys them. They are building a marriage on a sinkhole and asking you to stand on top of it to hide the collapse. She was right. I realized they had sent a massed email to the entire wedding party, about 30 people, regarding logistics and harmony, which was a thinly veiled instruction manual on how to handle awkward questions about their past. It was CC'd to everyone, including me, by accident or arrogance. I didn't respond immediately. I waited. I prepared.
Final update. The wedding was last weekend. I wasn't there in person, but my presence was the only thing anyone talked about. 2 days before the ceremony, on Thursday afternoon, I hit reply all to that logistics email. The distribution list included the bridesmaids, groomsmen, their parents, and the officiant. My message was brief. Reviewing the logs, there seems to be a discrepancy in the timeline you're presenting to your guests. I cannot attend to validate a relationship that began while I was paying the mortgage for the venue of the affair. Attached is the time-stamped security footage from the hallway of my condo on the date in question, confirming the timeline of the breach. I consider this ticket closed. Best of luck with the merger. I attached a single still image. Not graphic, just undeniable. It was a time-stamped frame from my hallway camera showing Chris and Alina entering my apartment at 2 p.m. on a Tuesday, clearly involved, while I was verified to be in San Francisco. The fallout was immediate. My phone blew up, so I put it on Do Not Disturb and went for a hike in the Cascades. According to Sarah, my inside source, the rehearsal dinner was a funeral. Elena's parents, who are old-school religious and had been told a very different, soft version of how they got together, were mortified. They apparently cornered Chris and demanded the truth. The groomsmen, who had been fed the "Mark was abusive" lie, saw the timestamp and realized Chris had been lying to them for years to cover his tracks. The wedding happened, but the firewall had been breached. The atmosphere was described as brittle. During the vows, when the officiant talked about integrity and honesty, half the room looked at their shoes. They were whispers. The narrative they wanted to construct, the fairy tale of two people finding each other after a bad situation, was overwritten by the raw data of their deception. Chris tried to spin it during the reception, making a speech about haters and jealousy, which only confirmed to everyone that he was rattled. Elena spent half the night in the bridal suite crying, not tears of joy, but the panic of a project manager realizing the build is failing live in production. 6 months later, the system is crashing. I heard from Sarah that Chris and Elena are already in counseling. The trust issues they introduced into the system are now eating their own relationship. Chris is paranoid Elena is talking to other guys, projection, and Elena blames Chris for provoking me into sending the email. They lost the thread. They wanted me there to be the patch, to cover the hole in their integrity. By refusing to install that patch, I forced everyone to look at the hole. As for me, I just accepted a transfer to our Zurich office. New architecture, new landscape, zero legacy code. I'm dating a woman who works in forensic accounting. We both understand that you can't cook the books and expect to pass the audit. The final packet I sent to Chris before I changed my number for the last time was a screenshot of his company's stock price, tanking, next to my promotion letter. I added a note, security tip. The vulnerability is always inside the house. System secure. Session terminated.